Welcome to another episode of Gaia Gossip. I am your host, Mary Jane Oatman. Tots May, we were joining from the homelands of the Nez Perce Nation, and I'm super honored and excited and very privileged to be having a discussion today, intimate conversation with the founder and visionary of Her Many Voices Foundation. It's a pleasure to be visiting with you today, Alicia, and just catching up on each other's world and the wide world of the amazing women that influence and impact our work. So, how are you doing?
Well, first of all, it's good to see you, and it's a treat to be here with you today. I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day in the Netherlands. Um, we've been having a whole lot of reflection on the powerful women that are in our lives and how they are moving forward in this world, this crazy world that we have going on right now. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
I've seen a lot of women in the work that we do, just really blazing trails in their respective pathways. And it just, let's kick it off with, how are the different Indigenous matriarchs that you've had the opportunity to work with? How have you seen some of their preservation efforts rolling out for the land rematriation effort?
Well, I gotta say, there are so many different women that I know both of us have in our lives that are really leading the way, right? For me personally, I've been working with Jane Wynn of the Wind Farm Ecological Reserve of Haiti for 15, almost 16 years now. And she is, for me, she is definitely, she's a power of example on how we get to tend to mother, do the things that are needed, go back to the old ways, right? Those traditional ways. The rematriation of our lands and our people of all species. We have an influence. We bring life into this world and we are here to tend to that life, nurture it. And so someone like Jane has been doing that for quite some time on her ecological reserve in Haiti. For those of you who are not aware, the majority of that country is deforested. So the fact that there are trees that stand there that she and her team have been protecting for years, it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. And then we have someone like Winona LaDuke. You know, I
Jake Hamster Winona.
oh my God, that woman. She has been leading the way. She's been plowing through for a long, long time. And she's not only done in honor of ancestors, but she is doing for our future ancestors. She works tirelessly for the young people as well. She is laying the foundation and leading the way in that path. And I,
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say one of the first Indigenous hemp conferences and workshops that I had attended was at Winona's farm back in 2020, just before the COVID pandemic shut down the world. My mother and I hopped in our car, marched, and drove over to Maple Lake, Minnesota, where she hosted one of her conferences. And my whole world has been opened up since then. The different people that I met along the way. It was actually through Winona LaDuke that I've had the opportunity to meet and interact with one of our tribal bison matriarchs out of Texas, Lucille Contreras, and she is absolutely putting Indigenous women healers on the map, seeing her recently featured in the Texas magazine. It's really just been exciting to see that not only are our Indigenous women making these amazing moves, but they're doing some really careful work around revitalizing cultural memory with these activities by way of storytelling. Storytelling is empowering, it's impactful. And what I've also witnessed is it creates a little gifted treasure for those next 7 generations. Like somebody is going to pick up this piece of work of what you have done, Alicia, long after we're not walking here and be able to find healing through that work.
One would hope. One would hope. I mean, that's the reason why we do this work, do we not, Mary Jane? You know, we sit here, we do everything that needs to be done as well as we can now, but with the future generations in mind. This goes beyond our children and their grandchildren and then theirs. And so we hope that someone's going to pick up the torch and carry it along. I know you have certainly done that with your mom.
Yes, my mother and my grandmother, two matriarchs that have been really important in the work that I do in planting those seeds for the next seven generations because they reflect on the seven that came before us and the work that we do as salmon community people or as women that go into the soil and nourish our communities with the preservation of our root systems, our edible root systems. They taught me from a very young age that we're walking amongst our kitchen. Our homelands is just that. It is our gifts from the creator to nourish us. And then, from there outward, just exploring, the different housing systems has been another one of those areas where I know that my people didn't always live in these stick homes, and also digging a little bit deeper past the work that as salmon people that we have been known for really identifies us as being teepee dwellers. But prior to that, we were longhouse people, and we lived in kivas and had spiritual ceremonies in underground at times. And one of the matriarchs that I was aware of in doing my learning and my knowledge seeking about what we can do for a just climate transition for our Mother Earth in regards to housing came in 2020 again when I learned about the work that Lisa Sandberg was doing in housing systems. And Lisa and my mom hit it off like crazy. And one of the other things that I really loved about Lisa was she was traveling all over with her mother, like I was. And then my grandmother was along on some of those trips. And so we would just have, that most unique opportunity, I think, and why I gravitated towards Lisa so much and the work that she's doing with hemp home housing is that even for her, she realized that it's very much a man's world and the construction world, but she really wanted to see how we could deconstruct the cultural designs of the hemp housing industry as we're moving forward. Do we have to do the same box structures? Can we build longhouse structures? And so I'm really excited that Lisa's doing some amazing things in her own pathways down there in California. And my mother and grandmother and I are really excited to be planning a trip this fall to go down to see Lisa and watch her in action.
You know, Lisa, she did a lot of partnership with the people in France. You know, she brought in materials. We worked together in helping that project start. We did something that bridged that. And one of the things I appreciate about her is that she will go to the source and go, all right, you've got the knowledge. I'm going to sit here and spend time with you. I'm going to take that knowledge and bring it back to my people. And I'm going to see how I can best utilize that as opposed to, oh, that's for your people, or we're different. So she has taken a tremendous amount of knowledge in the industrial hemp world and just in housing development in general. And she's using it for her own people. And the fact that you have been walking around with your mom and your grandmother, I know the power of having that lineage. My mother is 99 years old, and she travels a fair amount with me, maybe not even as much as I would like. And I can say that having her show me the way, she's the reason why our core value is whatever I do for another, I do for myself. She made that very clear to me as a child. Yeah. Her people came from North Carolina. They were farmers. They were people of the land. And she migrated up to New York City, and that's where I was raised. But regardless of that, she gave me that education. She planted those seeds within me. I ended up going to an agricultural high school as well as an agricultural university because of the stories my mom told me.
Matrilineal leadership really is so critical to help us restore any disconnects that we have with the colonization of our cultures, um, to be able to restore them. I do see that it is a lot of our Indigenous matriarchs that are blazing those trails inside and outside of plant medicine. No doubt. It sounds like your mother is very much like my grandmother, keeps me motivated and inspired to just keep moving and finding, those different ways uh, that we can do better and be better human beings. And I think that that's one of the things that has just been really a big role for me in having somebody like my grandmother, and her presence. Still very blessed to have her with me. Is that I think, act, and do better because of her. And I didn't really embrace the reality that my children, my nieces, my nephews, they find themselves in that very similar situation. And I remember hearing that from my dad when I was a young girl, oh, there's young ones that are going to come after you and they're going to be watching you. And as we get into the monotony of life and each step that we take and the trauma and the triumphs that we go through, sometimes along that pathway, we forget that others are watching us.
Children are always watching. You look at those infants, their eyes are gazed on you. They follow you.
And listen.
So we do need to be careful of the words that we use, the actions that we take. I believe we need to be careful of the thoughts that we have within ourselves because they're transmitted.
Absolutely. I think of that even with, my kind of visceral and knee-jerk reaction to some of the political pundit catastrophe that has been making the airwaves, about how others are watching, how I respond to that message that was sent in regards to, the continued genocidal um, politicizing of our blood. It it's alarming, it's frightening, but it's also the opportunity for us to reflect on how resilient our communities really are and how resilient that we will continue to be.
Yes, reading words of "we did not kill enough Indians" in today's climate, knowing that those kind of things incite violence, incite all sorts of thoughts, negative thoughts, is painful that we are still in this cycle. Um, it's definitely one that has charged me up, and I'm trying to figure out how does it sit within me, and what do I get to do to contribute to community and society in a peaceful, positive way, where we also need to educate people, like the person who made this comment. Um, I would say invite them into the fold, spend time with the people that you are um, verbally abusing at this point. Really spend time, get to know. If we are sitting at a table and sharing a meal, I find it very difficult that we can get up and hate each other.
And that's how I have, thought of things in the context of this great nation when we all gather to celebrate a holiday like Thanksgiving, that the place and role of Indigenous tribes, villages, and communities in this nation is a founding pillar. It would not talk about the treaties with the Indians in the United States Constitution if that were not a critical administrative component of that relationship. And so I do see that we are in a place as Indigenous women, very much in an amplified place currently to um, change that narrative or at the very least offer more truth to the fabric of that narrative, because at the end of the day, we find ourselves in this unique position of being uh, citizens of many nations on our own soil, the United States, citizens of, this nation, since they allowed us to become citizens after the passage of the Citizens Act, state citizens, our own tribal community citizens that we're a part of. But I have always, because of the land and the blood responsibility that I was raised with from many grandmothers passed down to me, is that I am Indigenous first because of that identity of my blood soil sovereignty coming from this land. So I want to do nothing more than just to strengthen that education, because we do have a shared responsibility towards our mother. And I think that that is a good common ground and starting place is we all love our mothers, right? And when it comes to the work that we have to do in the restoration of the plant medicine, of the healing parts of the plant work, is that our duty and our responsibility as Indigenous people is just so much more vibrant. We feel it. We have a hard time having technology and the noise drown it out. And so in your work, in your walk, what are some of the roles that you've seen for women in the storytelling side of this work, for education? What are I know that I have personally had the opportunity to work with a young woman uh, out of Arizona, and she is also doing some work in the repatriation of housing systems in her community. And it's Old Pueblo Hemp founder, Michaela Machado. And she's really doing an amazing job in her own right of doing the hard work, but she also understands it's important to share the work that she's doing. And so she takes it to the online quite a bit. I would really encourage you to check out Old Pueblo Hemp on social media, because not only is she doing the work, but she's sharing the healing impacts of that work. Do you have any of those types of channels, women's work that you can think of that is like a must follow because they're just doing a bang up job, on their healing work and also sharing it so that that cultural memory can be passed down?
Um, Before starting her many voices, there was a woman by the name of Jensina Larson that I was introduced to. And she was just starting something called World Pulse. It started out with a trifold called World Birth, and then she graduated to World Pulse, which ended up becoming a global digital media company. And the stories that Jensina was able to pull out, first of all, as a journalist, she would go into community and she would say, we hear about the atrocities on a regular basis. I'm looking more for what is positively happening for women and girls in this world. And she went to a lot of Indigenous communities and she started getting those stories because women will talk about that power of positive thought. These are the seeds we are planting literally in the ground, into the soil. These are the seeds that we are planting within ourselves and within our children. And this is what unfolds when you do that in a positive, loving way. Now it's 20 years later, and World Pulse is now in almost 200 countries. And there are Indigenous peoples, women in particular, all over this world who have really been able to blossom. Their work has taken off. They've communicated and really connected with other women in the world on a global level. If one has a resource and the other has a need within their community, women are partnered up, which we are here to support each other. And for me, what Jensina has created and what World Pulse has done speaks volumes to that. She's definitely been a power of example to the work that I've done and the path that I've been on.
Sounds like Sharon Jackson, one of the amazing women in my world that has taken me places that I never ever dreamed of going. And it was through the connection of women empowerment. She hosted a conference last year in Puerto Rico, and it was called We Mean Business. And
Mhm.
she integrated the cannabis conversation and invited in and was very intentional that Indigenous communities were going to be a very vibrant part of the plant medicine conversation. And so the National Women's Collaborative is going to be returning to Puerto Rico again this year in September for another gathering. And it is amazing to see how she has been able to get so many men as sponsors for the conference that is primarily all women. And it was life changing for me last year. One, because it was my first time ever going to Puerto Rico and being able to have ceremony on a land outside of my own in that way on the water, but also very impactful for me as a executive to be able to network with a diverse set of executives and thought leaders from across the country, across the world. And that's really what it was a global convening. And I really see that that's a lot of the work that Her Many Voices Foundation has done, this global convening of women. I personally have been connected with so many amazing, impactful women through Her Many Voices Foundation and the network since we all met at NOCO several years ago. And even full circle to this year's NOCO, same thing, new Indigenous women coming into the framework and um, providing a contribution to not just the conversation, but the continuity to the work that we do, and which is really important to see a lot more of our young women coming up and for us to be uh, protege. I think that that is a really, really important aspect of leadership is to be able to open the door for others to come in. And I wanted to thank you for that personally, that you have done that for me in so many different ways. Um, and a part of that is even getting outside of our own comfort zone to realize how much we can grow once we do.
I do have to say, the first time I heard you, you were on stage at NOCO, and I was absolutely blown away. And I thought, I have to speak to this young woman. I have so much to learn. There's so much. You have a wealth of knowledge, and you're another one that goes and you seek it. And it's not just something that is passed on only from our elders, but our young people. We learn a lot from the little ones. So it's something we take within ourselves, and I think you do that well. I have an opportunity. It's going to be in another few weeks. Pamela Sea Monster is is going to take myself and a couple of other folks. We have one of our board members, Jason Jacobs. He's Maori from out of New Zealand. And then Jeremy Hale. We're coming in. Um, we're going to be in Denver, and then she's going to take us up to Pine Ridge Reservation, where we're going to meet up with Duck. Um, and my role in this is to sit back and to get an education. I need to sit and listen. Oftentimes we feel, and I think sometimes as we age, we think, well, we have so much to bring to the table, and we're the ones who are going to impart all of this wisdom. And sometimes the wisest thing for you to do is to absolutely sit and listen. So I'm going to have, I think, 2, 3 days of listening and really absorb what's going on in their community. And then Pamela's going to take us to her community in Seattle as well.
They're doing very impactful work. I've been following the work of Pamela as well as Duck and Resilient. The definition, open up dictionary, and they would be right there. Overcome a lot of different obstacles, and even when they identify more, they reach out they find community connectors and other Indigenous communities that are digging into the healing and restoration work with hemp. And that's one of the areas where I do know that the tribal communities have an extreme amount of opportunity, and it is really important for us to continue the work of listening to what those needs are in those respective communities. Because as strategists and as people that like to find solutions, we're building the toolkit. We're finding the different ways that we can supplement what our communities need to be able to be successful. And I'm really excited for your trip, just a little bit jealous, but I do know that you will have such an amazing time in both communities. And even that part of it, to be able to go from the plains of the Lakota community and then to be in the matriarchs' homelands of the coastal Salish Sea, uh, will just be an impactful thing that will just contribute to the work that you do for Her Many Voices Foundation. So I'm excited for you.
And very different lands, very different cultures, you know. Um, I'm curious, particularly going into Pine Ridge, there's been, it's a land of toxicity. So much has happened on those grounds and has impacted the people in all sorts of ways. So I'm curious as to what we will hear from community, um, what their experiences are. So I'm very excited about it. I'm also a little hesitant as to sometimes you recognize the need is so great. And especially now when um, the administration that we have has taken away funding that would be supportive of these communities.
Well, I do know that the work that Pamela is doing is very much a powerful matriarchal led movement. And I do believe that what you're doing and going there to visit, listen, and learn will only extend to the non-native community for a greater understanding. And with that, I do believe that there is a lot to learn from our non-native communities still about how we're finding solutions in this political climate now where the belt is getting tightened even tighter in our tribal communities as far as resources. And the world is watching how communities respond, and even more intimately how our Indigenous communities continue to thrive and survive past you know living within our homelands with uh, a lot of exploitation of our commodities and our resources. And I do know from the work that I've done in my own community that it has shifted uh, that conversation for our young people. We see a lot more of them out there fishing this summer instead of working in the local grocery stores or gas stations. We have a lot of our young women that are out there digging more roots. And so I do believe that this imbalance that we have faced is becoming a benefit to our people more than a burden.
I recognize even with like my girls, they're doing so much within community in Denver. There are so many different nations that are represented within the cities, and Denver being one of them. And they spend a lot of time doing youth workshops. My eldest daughter is a doula, and she works within our communities. Mostly, she's working with Indigenous women. Um, it does my heart good to recognize what they are bringing to the table in these next couple of generations. You know that that torch is passed. You know those seeds have been planted, and they continue to water. And we are resilient. We are absolutely resilient. And it shows in each and every one of their faces and each and every one of their actions.
Well, Alicia, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to as you prep for a transition into the fall season? And we have, uh, had this amazing opportunity to have this conversation. I know that I am planning for our Washington, D.C. Policy Summit, and I'm crossing my fingers that we'll be able to see some Her Many Voices Foundation team members join us at the fourth annual Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association Summit in Washington, D.C. in November. But in between now and then, what are some of the events that you look to highlight and encourage the women listeners and all of our listeners to be able to join you at?
Well, I believe that Her Many Voices will certainly be in DC. It was a treat showing up last year, so I don't see why we don't have a representation this year again. I head back out to the States in a few weeks from now. And like I said, I'm coming out with Jason Jacobs, our Maori representative on our board. And we are scouting out different areas, looking at, well, is there a way that we can collaborate with different communities? So I'm enjoying that kind of tour. I just came back with Morris Beagle. We were in Italy a couple of weeks ago because we're doing tours of where is next year's European International Hemp Conference going to be. And right now, the toss-up is between Italy and Poland and Lithuania. So we're expanding, and Indigenous peoples are in these roots. They're in these little tentacles everywhere. And then also, I just came back. I spent a month in New Zealand speaking to the Maori people who are very interested in working in this industry and really doing that full circle economy, keeping it from everything from seed to the end product. So right now, my focus is doing some collaboratives to prepare some of the community leaders to go speak to the tribal boards and hopefully get their approval as they go to their councils to move forward with this industry. Right now, we've got a number of people who are very excited about it, but there's excitement and then there's action. So that's what I'm looking forward to right now. And
sounds a lot like my world. A lot of strategy, a lot of planning, relationship building, and most certainly just always looking forward to being able to find new resources for our communities and grow the resources that we have.
When we collaborate, when we come together, that's the important thing because we rise together then. And it doesn't matter whose community you are. Let's come to that human community and work together because we need each other.
Yes, we do. Well, thank you so much, Alicia, for a wonderful conversation today. I do know that our listeners have some wonderful women to be on the lookout for. I encourage you all to go and look them up on their social media sites. They're doing some empowering work. A lot of them hempsters and doing work with plant medicine for housing systems, but there's a lot of work being done outside of housing systems for the hemp plant plastics, carbon projects, and so look forward to bringing you many more voices that we can gossip about.
Thank you so very much, Mary Jane. It's been a pleasure today. Thank you again for joining us at Her Many Voices Gaia Gossip. Remember, whatever you do for another, you do for yourself. For more information, head over to hermanyvoices.org to learn more about other programs and get involved. From all of us at Gaia Gossip and Her Many Voices Foundation, thank you, and until next time.